Hello and welcome to our video contemplation of day signature 42. This frequency corresponds to the Princess of Wands and the noble role of delight. It is represented by the angels of presence and...
celebration.
Yes! I was planning on delivering that, but I thought I might as well surprise you a little bit there. That's right.
You gave me an opportunity to celebrate.
Yeah, and laugh. The angels of presence and celebration. And in case you couldn't tell, all of this is very much the quality of energy that our hearts are bringing into this conversation today. Delight, presence, celebration. Would you like to share what the pathways and embodiments of these angels are?
Yes.
Okay.
So the 20th angel of presence walks the pathway of surrender to become the embodiment of divinity. And the 42nd angel of celebration walks the pathway of wonder to become the embodiment of growth.
Yes. For those of you who have been joining us now for the past week or so, however long it's been that we've been sharing these stories, you've heard us speak to the idea of a path of wonder. It's really special and totally surprising to us that we arrive at this pathway, in fact, today. That this day's signature includes the pathway of wonder as a legitimate pathway, angel pathway. Like, that's so cool. We're not making this stuff up. We think we are sometimes, but actually life, in every case, confirms when we're onto something. So here we meet the pathway of wonder. One thing that we'd like to mention at the very outset of this conversation is that we're dealing with the Princess of Wands. For those of you who are familiar with the tarot, perhaps you're scratching your head or flipping through your tarot guidebooks trying to find where the princess came from. And it's worth noting that she is brand new. She is one of 8 brand new members of the tarot. One of those 8 members who were revealed to us as we were uncovering the liberated tarot. So what we're finding here is fresh. It is new. It is unprecedented. And so we wanted to take a couple of minutes just to share with you what we're sensing and finding in the princess as an archetype, as a new member of this noble family.
Yeah, I think the word that we found that describes the princess best, all of the different princesses in the different suits, in general, is the word grace. We also really see this element of trust, transformation, and innocence.
Yeah. So we like to work with keynotes when we are meeting something new, and especially as whatever that is becomes more and more refined in our awareness, we like to kind of contain all of our findings in a single word or a small batch of words. So when it comes to the princess as a member of the noble family, regardless of whether it's in the swords or the wands or the hearts or the diamonds, our main keynote, our primary keynote for the princess is grace. Our secondary keynotes, if you'd like to think of them that way, we like to think of them as descriptors. We bring these into our contemplations when we're working with the princess in any placement. Would, of course, as Laura has just said, they would be, let me check here. Innocence, trust, and transformation. Thank you. Laura's really good about taking the kind of notes we most need to remember the things we're most excited to share. So those secondary keynotes, innocent, trust, and transformation. These are sort of the energies we're going to meet in today's signature, one way or another. Even though they're not on the surface, even though you're not necessarily finding them in the noble role of delight or in the terms that we apply to the angels, you should be able to sense their energy in those words and also in the themes of the day. So this is the princess. We find her to be so free, childlike. She's worried about nothing.
Yeah, she's very trusting.
Yeah, the kingdom is hers. She was raised into this birthright. What is there to fear?
Exactly, yes.
So we really appreciate this energy, and you can get a taste for that in the noble role of delight. Delight is free and easy. Delight is uninhibited.
Yeah. One of my favorite movies, Maleficent, the Princess Aurora really embodies this this Princess of Wands and the noble role of delight. She's just delighted by everything. And you can totally see that this Princess of Wands in that character in the movie. So I always think of her.
Yeah. I mean, she was very much, I think, a part of our contemplation. When we found these words, we could like almost see that image. We were holding that image in mind, not on purpose. It was just there. And it led us to this understanding of the noble role of delight. I think it's really worth considering, if you're viewing this, what it means for this to be a noble role. Like, is it really fair to say in our general experience of life that we have allowed delight to come that far forward? How many of us have truly done that to understand that this is a noble expression?
Right.
It is an appropriate...
Right. It's appropriate for it to be central to our experience.
Yeah. To me, anyway, that feels very new. I can't say that I was necessarily raised into this idea that life is meant to be so completely enjoyed that the frequency of delight comes first, that this theme of delight can be used as a mechanism for effectively navigating experience. Quite the opposite, in fact. Oftentimes, we may hold an awareness of what we delight in, what we find delightful, but we may argue against its appropriateness or validity in our experience because there are so many other far more important things to do. And I think what the tarot, the angels, what life is attempting to reveal to us here is that, once again, you are not here for the heavy effort of ... fill in the blanks. You're not here for the heavy effort of anything. You are here for the sheer joy of living. That's what this princess brings forward. And we get, I think, in today's signature, the opportunity to envision that and to imagine what she looks like. This beautiful princess running through a field of wildflowers, just so happy, so
Carefree.
Content, carefree. That's a beautiful word. That's a very important word. Totally carefree, totally uninhibited, falling onto her back amidst these flowers and just marveling at the sky and the clouds and the birds. And it's like all of the bugs and all of the animals are singing and moving and dancing for her. She has this magical quality about her, this magical perspective. And that's what we're being invited into as well. Not as some Disney-esque, imaginative, mental interplay. We're not playing pretend. We are considering what it might mean to understand that real life is like this. That's something. It's a whole new way, not only of navigating life, but of meeting it from one moment to the next. So there is something very delightful about this energy, something very carefree, very easy, very fresh about this energy. It may be so easy, so beautiful, so fresh that it feels a little out of reach.
Yeah, which I think that's the pathway of surrender.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
great.
It's what is required.
Yes.
We have to fully surrender. It feels like surrender because it's a letting go.
Okay, so you're brilliant. This is the perfect segue to something else that we really saw, I think, for the very first time this morning. Maybe we've danced around it before, but this is the first time we played with it explicitly. And so we'll share with you what we're seeing. In every one of these placements, every single day signature, every single member of the tarot, you are meeting two angels. Not one, but two. And so what we began to explore was how those two angels interrelate, right? And so in each of these angels, we find three bands or three keynotes. The first is always their name or their expression. So we're dealing with the angel of presence in the 20 and the angel of celebration in the 42. The second is their pathway. We've talked about how practical the pathway is, how this is kind of home base for like what to do with this information. And so here we find the pathway of surrender in the 20 and the pathway of wonder in the 42. And again, the embodiment layer, we find the embodiment of divinity in the 20 and the embodiment of growth in the 42. So what we saw this morning for the first time is that we can draw a direct line from the expression or name of one angel to the expression or name of the other, from the pathway of one angel to the pathway of the other. And when we do this on the pathway level, for example, and this is what you just kind of brought up, we realize that when we have really the courage and the willingness to relax so totally into the flow of life that pre-exists us, the flow of life that is larger than us, the flow of life that is the very thing that calls us forward into more life, when we surrender ourselves to that, somehow on the pathway of surrender, we meet the pathway of wonder. They go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. When you finally surrender, you meet the truth. And what happens? You become lost in wonder. And vice versa. You could say that in order to enact or engage with the pathway of wonder, you absolutely must surrender to a much higher idea than that particular constellation of ideas that you may have held before. Mm-hmm. The two are together.
Yeah, I mean, in order to get all that seriousness out of the way, in order to perceive of wonder, you have to let that go. You have to let go of those concerns. Yes. and allow yourself to be totally carefree. Trust that you are supported. Otherwise, there's just no room for wonder to blossom.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's crazy, but the way you said that reminded me of a term that many of us have heard before, especially in younger years, I'll bet, about wearing rose-colored glasses. I think the irony is that we've walked around wearing seriousness-colored glasses.
Gray, cloudy glasses.
Fear-colored glasses. Mm-hmm. And what's actually happening is not that we don rose-colored glasses, but that we remove the gray, cloudy glasses, the fear-colored glasses. And what we find when we do this is, oh my, this world is not monochrome. Yeah. It's flushed with color and life and vitality. And somehow what I'm seeing outside of me is reflective of what's inside of me, and all of this beauty that I am encountering, it is indicative of myself, of who I am. That's not rose-colored glasses. That's clear seeing for the first time.
Yes.
And so, yeah, we have to surrender that. We have to take those old glasses, that old lens. We have to remove that old perspective. We have to take it off, just like Laura said. And in doing so, we discover the very thing that has been totally present all along the way, which is beauty, which is life, which is color. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. And the same thing plays out on the expression level and the embodiment level. We were playing with the angel of presence and the angel of celebration. Mm-hmm. On the one hand, you could say that as you become present, you become open to celebration. The more present you are, the more capable you are of celebrating, the more you can see and take in that is worthy of celebration. Mm-hmm.
And if something is in your life, if something's present in your life, it's cause for celebration. Period.
Oh, period. Own that. Like, consider that. That is a powerful statement. Mm-hmm. How many things are present in our lives that we're looking at and saying, I wish that weren't present, or that should not be present, or I'm gonna need to fix this, or in some way outgrow this. Yeah. What Laura has just said is not a nice idea. It's a fundamental reality. If something is present in your life, it is cause for celebration. Why? Because of everything we've discovered up until this point, because of how generous and how capable and how brilliant life is, and how all of that life is constantly happening for you and constantly calling you up and constantly calling you forward into more life. Mm-hmm. It may or may not look like that on the surface. If someone gives you $1 million out of nowhere, you might be very excited to celebrate that. But if you meet something that appears to be a challenge or an obstacle, if it causes heartache or discomfort in some way, without a willingness to interpret that through these particular lenses, or rather to remove the old lenses that you've previously perceived of that and to simply allow the clear light of truth to shine down on the experience, without that willingness, you're not going to be able to celebrate whatever that apparent obstacle is. You won't be able to see that it's life's way of provoking more from the infinite well of capacity and beauty and brilliance that is inherently a part of you. Everything that happens for us, and that's a part of what this particular frequency, these angels, and this princess, they're all calling us to realize.
Yeah. It's the willingness that changes everything.
Absolutely. Oh, and that willingness is a mental agility. It's a mental willingness. Truly, it is. I think that the heart is almost always ready to get behind what the mind does. And so when the mind is very fearful, the heart clutches. And when the mind is very agile and very elegant and very willing to open and to become flexible and to consider new things, the heart is very excited by this. It's ready for that adventure. It doesn't need to know. It loves the journey. It's the mind that tends to need to know. And so the more flexible we can become, the more creative we can become, the more willing we can become to change our ideas and to change them in a particular direction, to change them for the better, to beautify them, the more of ourselves become engaged.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's celebration. That's wonder. We saw this playing out on the embodiment level too. The embodiment of
divinity.
Yes, the embodiment of divinity in the 20th angel, and the embodiment of growth in the 42nd angel. This is, again, really special, really exciting to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to share what we saw about this? Do you think you could articulate it at this point?
Well, I think that when we think of the concept of divinity, we also sort of simultaneously
mm-hmm.
think of infinity.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we know about infinity is that it never ends. It's constantly growing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why these two are almost one and the same. You can't have divinity or infinity without that growth that never stops. So when we're always willing to step up into that embodiment of growth,
mm-hmm.
if we're willing to do that, if we are embodying growth, we are also simultaneously embodying divinity.
Yeah. That, for some reason, to us, felt like a pretty major leap. At least for myself, as I kind of reflected on my relationship to the idea of divinity, it always felt a bit like this end-all, be-all.
Right.
Like you arrive at divinity and then you did it. Like, look, like,
right.
or that divinity is so far beyond you and you'll never get there, but it has arrived at some end. And of course, this cannot be true if infinity is also a factor. Mm-hmm. Like infinity must never end. Infinity must continue infinitely. That's the idea. And so growth is inherent to the idea of infinity, which means that growth on any level, on any scale, whether it's the little seed we talked about yesterday becoming a sprout, becoming a tree, mm-hmm. or whether it's the growth of your mental perspective or the growth of your heart expanding, whatever the case may be, growth on any level is representative of, expressive of divinity itself, capital D divinity. Yeah. Inherent to the movement is divinity.
Mm-hmm. I mean, our universe is constantly expanding. It's just a fact of existence that we're constantly growing, we're constantly expanding.
Yes. And so these are some of the things that we've picked up on in this frequency just since waking this morning. Now, I told Laura earlier that if I were forced to choose, I might choose the 42nd angel as my all-time favorite, because this movement from celebration to wonder to growth, it kind of contains the whole story. Celebration is the one single most important word I think that we've discovered and claimed as our own. Mm-hmm. It's the very foundation of the paradise we're building together.
Definitely.
And the pathway of wonder, of course, we've realized that over and over again, moment by moment, we're met with this opportunity to choose between worry and wonder.
Right.
And so we choose wonder because we love the idea of a world where we get to meet every moment with that blushing of surprise, with that blossoming open mm-hmm. of surprise and wonder and celebration.
Yeah, I think that's what we're doing with these day signatures. In fact, I think we mentioned the frequency of wonder in our very first video.
You did. Mm-hmm.
But that's what these day signatures and these frequencies and the cards, they're all
inviting
inviting.
that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jinx. Yeah. I agree. That's exactly what's happening. Mm-hmm. Which is to say that they're inviting growth. They're inviting us to see more. They're mm-hmm. inviting us to break through old boundaries of comfort, apparent comfort zones and things like this, so we can show up and share that light with you in the best way we possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, that's what growth is. It's not like it can be a physical thing, but we're always invited to see more. It's about seeing more, mm-hmm.
Yes.
First and foremost.
Yes. As far as the 20th angel goes, this one's very close to home for you. For a number of reasons, but one that comes immediately to my mind is your crystal self.
Mm-hmm.
Your crystal self frequency is 20, which directly correlates to this. So we've spent some time with this. Also, by the way, the frequency of 42 is a personal frequency for Laura.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, personal vortex day today for me. My life path is 42.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Both life path and the crystal self frequency are parts of the crystal self experience and the chronicle. So the crystal self chronicle, either one of which you can learn more about on our website. But we find this a similarly kind of expansive, liberating, surprising movement in the 20th angel as well. It's pretty self-evident that true presence demands complete surrender.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take your hands off. You have to stop trying to control, manipulate, or even understand or make sense of the miracle that you're swimming in at any given moment. So you surrender to the awareness of that miracle, and what happens? Everything else that we've talked about happens. You become enraptured. You become delighted.
Mm-hmm.
You begin to celebrate, and inevitably you become the embodiment of divinity, because in any moment where you are completely present, open-hearted, willing to celebrate, aware of the miracle, and growing, your heart, your mind, your being grows and expands as a direct result of that. In any case where you are blossoming open in response to life, you are in that moment actively exemplifying the very definition of divinity.
Yeah. Yeah, this angel also has this quality about it because of the divinity aspect, where it's completely invulnerable, it's impenetrable, it's just, outside the bounds of anything harming it or anything messing with it.
Yeah, it's great.
And that happens not because of avoiding being able to dodge obstacles. It's because you're present with them that you can transform them and see what's actually happening. And when we kind of take our attention or our presence away from the moment, we miss out on those opportunities to see what's really happening.
Yeah, that's entirely true. And I realize that's maybe not a new story for a lot of us. The word presence and the idea of becoming present, these aren't new ideas for most of us. But to us, what we're sensing here does feel new as a conglomerate, as a collective. When you pull it all together, this version of presence does feel new. It's not some attempt at a meditative presence. We're not trying to be something different than we are. We're not trying to appear present. We are just becoming present to what is right in front of us. And that does involve not worrying about what may or may not be coming a week or a year or a lifetime down the line. Mm-hmm. And it does involve removing those old lenses that have us kind of drawing makeshift fantastic trajectories based on whatever's in front of us, or connecting certain things in the present to an uncomfortable past. We release all of this and we just meet the moment. We meet the moment of being able to share this with you as the wonderful opportunity that it is. In doing that, of course, we also have to release our worries and concerns about how we might look or sound, or whether we might fumble over certain words, or whether you're even interested in hearing what we have to say. Mm-hmm. We have to let all of that go and just sit here with our tea and be in love and excited about life and just trust the rest to happen. That's the princess. It's all of this, all of it. Celebration, delight, surrender. It's all rooted in trust. Trust and surrender are themselves entirely synonymous.
Yes.
So this is what we're dealing with today. It's a really glorious invitation to taste something which is always available to us. It's not showing us something new. Yeah. It's showing us a new way of encountering something ancient. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So these are some of the things that I think we picked up on in our contemplation. But along the way, we've been living. Mm-hmm. Right? We have our life unfolding and our own real life lessons unfolding as a result of that. Do you still feel inspired to share maybe an example?
Absolutely. I think that it's completely necessary so that we can demonstrate how this actually looks. This idea of when we're present to our life, we have these opportunities to take what looks like a challenge and see what's actually going on, and then derive benefit from it and growth, and just see how there is really no excuse for not being delighted in every moment and being just wonderstruck, So I think that having that example and talking about it is perfect, because it's really, we have these small opportunities all day long. Mm-hmm. And it's really relevant, especially for people who might be watching us, because you might have a similar interest in what we're going to talk about, which is astrology.
Yeah. So those little moments that emerge throughout the day, some of them are beautiful and exciting. Some of them are a little uncomfortable, but they're happening for all of us all the time. Mm-hmm. I tend to be a more private person. So it's not something I would generally be like, hey, let's share this story from our personal life in public. But the more that we do this, the more I can see what you just described, which is that we're all here for one another. And in any case where we can kind of open the window and allow you to kind of peer into our real life, we're able to make all of this more practical. We're able to ground it in real life examples. And we're also able to disconnect any ideas you might have that we're different than you in this regard.
Right.
So we're all doing the same dance.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so then where should we begin then? With last night?
Yeah, so yesterday, I think I read something where I noticed that in the sky right now, sort of, we're always sort of aware that in space, the planets are always moving, and there's different objects, and they're always moving. And that's kind of the premise of astrology, is the movement of the planets somehow reflecting the movement here down on Earth. And so I happened to notice that contemporaneous with us showing up on video, there's also this comet called the Atlas Comet, I believe. And so I saw that maybe somebody had correlated this comet, the appearance of this comet, to an astrological theme of being able to show up and speak publicly. So I noticed that and I was like, wow, that's really cool. And so I shared that with Timothy, and Timothy was like, well, I don't know. Your response was a little hesitant, and rightfully so, because another thing about astrology that we kind of laugh at is how it seems very common to sort of look at astrology and see how easy it is to blame the planets for your problems. Like, it's kind of just a joke that if something's going on in your life, you might, and you enjoy astrology, you'll immediately be like, what are the planets doing because my life is a mess right now, or something. There's just that sort of joke, but at the same time, it's a perfect opportunity to look beneath the surface and be really present to that, not just brush it under the rug or ignore it, which, I attempted to do actually. But
so once again, your delivery is always so gracious. And what I love in now hearing your description of this story, but also something I could clearly see even last night, is just how Princess of Wands-like your relationship to those findings were. Laura was just excited by what she saw. It was innocent. It was very beautiful in this regard. When she brought that to me to excitedly share, there's definitely a version that could have played out, and it probably would have been it could have been an even more beautiful version, potentially, where I just joined her in that excitement because I love when Laura's excited. But what I heard was something to the effect of, hey, other people are saying that our ability to show up like this in public and speak is connected to this comet, which is passing. And so, of course, to this, I immediately said, no. Why? Mm-hmm. The reason is because I know that this movement that we're living was internally generated, authentically generated by some much larger force, much larger intelligence than a comet passing by.
Right.
And I also know that if we then take something totally beautiful and totally authentic and totally appropriate, and we take the power of that thing and put it onto a comet which is passing, then in next to no time, all of that energy to show up in this way literally goes bye-bye as that comet continues on its merry little way. I just gave my power away to this thing, which I may not see again for however many hundreds of years. I don't know, you know? So in the moment last night, I was like, nope. Of course, you can imagine how my poor wife, who was just excited,
deflated.
And yeah, totally deflated. And I mean, you know, again, she's so gracious in her delivery, but I'm pretty sure that I even said something like, you know, when she tried to counter what I was saying with her perspective, I was just totally close to it. And I even said something about how like astrology is bullshit.
Yeah.
I think those were my exact words.
Possibly.
And the reason for this, of course, is that I believe that the mainstream application of astrology is self-limiting, is disempowering. And so I've sloughed off those ideas in the same way that I've removed human design and any other limiting, the original tarot, any of these other limiting ideas from my reality.
Right.
I wasn't doing the wrong thing necessarily, but it had to have felt harsh, and I knew it, and I didn't want it to, and I knew I had upset Laura. Although she was, again, just like, totally, you're just always so kind about that, because she'll never make a big thing of anything. But because I love her and because I'm sensitive to her and to this life that we've cultivated, I actually struggled to sleep last night. You know, I was like working this over in my mind quite a lot. And I realized that we'd probably have to kind of talk this out so that you could understand that I did see the simple, innocent, beautiful place you initially came from, and so that I would have the opportunity to kind of like share what I was seeing, whether I delivered it in a kind way or not. You know, I needed to apologize for being harsh, but the intention, what I was seeing, is absolutely necessary for us to be on the same page about. If Laura's relationship to this thing is, you know, as this comet disappears, our ability to show up on video will too, we're going to have a problem. Right. So we need to make sure we're speaking the same language.
Yeah. And that's when you fully embodied this angel of presence by making sure that we didn't bypass that opportunity to reclaim something that we both actually love, which is astrology. We love the empowered astrology. We love having the ability to look anywhere in our world, in our environment, and see an opportunity for celebration, see validation of, you know, ourselves and our life. And so I was really, really grateful that you wanted to talk about it, because what we did was totally reclaim something that I was almost willing to just let go.
And you probably would have done that totally if you felt that it in any way was an impediment to the continual growth of our life.
Right.
Again, though, so gracious. What was actually, I had no idea I was being an embodiment of the 20th angel. Let's put it that way.
Oh, yes.
What was actually happening is we woke up after a night of no sleep for me, and we had our coffee, and first thing, still dark out, both of us bleary-eyed. I'm sitting there with my coffee, and in my head is this storm of like, should I mention it? Should I not mention it? I don't want to hurt her feelings. I don't want to sweep this under the rug. I hate that I upset her. I've got to at least apologize. Like, a lot happening and all of it uncomfortable, until finally I just kind of, you know, put on my big boy pants and opened my mouth, and as gently as possible kind of initiated this conversation, which yielded so much. And that's a part of what we get to share with you, is to say, this particular experience was initially uncomfortable, initially confounding.
Yeah.
You don't understand what's going on.
Right. Absolutely. That's how everything that challenges us in life appears to us. We don't understand why, but there's always a good reason. There's always an absolutely beautiful reason.
Yes.
We just have to be willing to allow it to penetrate deep enough that we can expand and take the limits off of whatever it is, so that we can receive the gift.
Yes. In this case, I had to basically spend the night discerning the validity of what I was seeing. I had to consider, am I seeing something clearly, something that benefits our life, or is it time for me to adjust my perspective? And then I had to sit there with my coffee amidst that storm of worry, and I had to trust into the quality of our relationship deeply enough, trust into what I know about Laura deeply enough, trust into all the many ways that she has demonstrated a respect for me, in my opinion, deeply enough to open my mouth. There was a lot that happened there. And then Laura simultaneously had to trust that brooding Timothy was working on something that would benefit us, not something that would hurt us. She had to trust that whatever process I was engaged in was something that would bear fruit in our lives rather than, squeeze a knife into the back of our lives. So all of this played out in a way that, we eventually decided we ought to share this, because here's what it yielded. It yielded something that actually extended beyond our relationship, our love, all of which grew and became more refined and more exciting as a result, but extended beyond that into not only astrology, but also the angels, and also these conversations and the day signature and what we're seeing. Mm-hmm. Because I'll be honest, and this is now my opportunity to kind of own up to now being able to see more than I was able to see even one day ago, and even apologize for any misunderstanding that may have emerged as a result of the fact that I couldn't see it one day ago. But up until this morning, I've encountered these day frequencies or day signatures and frequencies and angels and everything we meet as like an invitation to express these particular things, almost as if they were buried real deep down and these days were coming to pull them out of us, or we were in some way distant from their expression. And now, because it's a 41 or a 42, these particular things are being activated. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where I was coming from.
Like when we have personal vortex days, it's finally we get to see and experience this energy, and it's not always like that.
Right. So if you miss it on that day, there's the very subtle but very real implication that you might have to wait, 86 days until it shows up again. Mm. These sort of things, they tend to be very subtle. But one thing we've learned along the way, which has been a very profound learning, is that the more refined you become and the more subtle these refinements become, the greater their impact is.
Massive, huge.
Yeah. And so it feels like you're making the tiniest little adjustment, but that tiny little adjustment could be the complete difference between total misalignment and perfect tuning.
Yes. Right. Or disempowerment versus mm-hmm. total empowerment.
Absolutely, yes.
No limits.
Right. And so what I was able to see this morning as a result of our experience and our conversation is that these day signatures are not inviting something. They are celebrating something. They are not saying to something that's standing on the other side of your doorway, come on in. Today's an opportunity for you to become larger. They are already in. They're already in the house, and they are celebrating the largeness that you already are. They're not saying become larger. They're saying, wow, you are so large. Please listen to that. Mm-hmm. Go back and listen to it. The difference, it may seem subtle, but it makes all the difference in the world. We've known this, and we're going to be as explicit as we possibly can be, and we're going to find new ways of saying this one same thing over and over again. We are not interested in shadow work, healing, or development. We are not interested in this idea that we are in some way broken and need to be fixed, or in some way smaller than we ought to be and need to grow large. Growth is not about becoming better than you are. It's about permitting the perfection that you are to continue to breathe, to continue to grow. Mm-hmm. So we're not inviting something different than you are in these day signatures. That's not what the angels are doing. The angels are a part of you. They are who you are. So rather than invitations, we have congratulations. We have a celebration mm-hmm. of who you already are now.
Yes. So this is a blanket sort of celebration. We apply it to everything. We apply it to mm-hmm. the astrology. If a planet shows up, it's celebrating you.
Yes.
If an animal companion shows up, it's celebrating you.
Yes.
Angel numbers, all of these things that we love we see them as pure celebration. Their presence is a celebration of us and what we're already experiencing. So it's a subtle distinction, but it absolutely changes everything.
It does. It changes everything in another way too, which was kind of a fun discovery for us, which is that when we're talking about growth and we're talking about expansion, we are not talking about growing beyond something. We're not talking about discarding anything.
Right.
We're talking about including everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that again. We're not talking about discarding anything. We're talking about including everything. Imagine for yourselves a circle that grows. Whatever was inside that initial circle remains inside the larger circle. It's just that the larger circle is now capable of holding more than the initial circle. That's what's happening. And so along the way, we realized that, man, I have to be honest, I don't think that, as excited as I was about human design, I just don't think that the way it's being applied fits. I don't believe it to be empowered. In fact, the opposite. I see it limiting people, and I see it making them act in ways and excuse behaviors that are totally small and unhelpful. So I guess I have to, throw away the whole idea of human design. Oftentimes, in growing, we will need to, in fact, release our prior relationships to certain things. The quality of those relationships is going to have to evolve, and in order for it to do so, we have to let it go.
Yeah, transform, and allowing something to transform.
Yeah, transform, transmute. But yes. There's your word for the day.
Mm-hmm. And in doing so, in doing the transformation process, that releasing, we're trusting that it will return to us, and it does. Yes,
and it does, and it's a huge surprise when it does. What you realize is that, we talked yesterday about, I think it was yesterday. No, it was in the Ten of Swords. Whenever we talked about running into a wall, running into the same wall for 10 years or something, and eventually you realize maybe I ought to move. I said something along the lines of like, hey, the wall is innocent.
Right.
The wall is just being a wall. It's your responsibility to adjust course, to be willing to change. In this case, human design, astrology, the tarot, numerology.
The planets are innocent.
Yeah. All of these systems are totally innocent. What we're working with is our relationship to them. And so what we're releasing is not the thing, but our relationship to the thing. That's why we can let go of that. We can allow life to kind of like pry our fingers off of a particular way of being in relationship to one thing, because that action only allows for a new way of being with that thing. And that's how, the tarot is released in order to deliver the liberated tarot, and human design is released, and the 64 gates of human design are released, and the analysis of human design and the readings of human design and the limitation all released in order to produce this wide open expanse of 64 angels that we now get to occupy. Never in a million years could we have seen that from there. It had to be let go of, but it had to be let go of in a way that permitted it to return.
Right.
We don't go to war with the things that no longer fit us. We release our prior relationship to them, understanding that if there's an evolution that is, playing itself out, we become available to that evolution by taking our hands off, by surrendering to the movement and preparing for the surprise.
Yes.
That's the promise in every case.
Right.
And it is surprising, and it's very exciting. This morning, for the first time in all these years of being critical toward astrology because of how it's generally applied, for the first time this morning, I can breathe easy on the subject, especially in this context of our own home, because I now know not only what a more empowered vision of astrology might look like, but I know that I have coherence with my wife on the subject, which means hold on to your horses, because a lot of things are going to be growing and changing and shifting and expanding and becoming more beautiful and reintroducing themselves to us on a higher octave. That's awesome.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm just like, I can't wait to see what comes of that. But hopefully those of you listening can already feel what has come of that, even just in the couple of hours that we've been awake this morning.
Wow.
Yeah. I would agree with that. It feels very, very exciting. So the difference between releasing and discarding, hopefully those of you viewing this are able to really understand that distinction. The difference between releasing for all time and including in a larger context. Hopefully you can feel that distinction as well. The difference between invitation and celebration, oof, that to me is the biggest one.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even realize the way that my choice of words, without, like, really under the best of intentions, my choice of words was self-limiting.
Yeah.
And of course, on this day, the day of we haven't even, it's so good.
Yeah.
We haven't even said this.
Uh-huh.
The frequency of the number 42
Yeah.
is literally the same exact frequency as the word celebrate.
Yeah. Amazing.
And the 42nd angel is the angel of celebration. This is a day of celebration. And so, of course, this very beautiful word, invitation, which was the best I could see up until this morning, was transmuted into a higher form, into a clearer form, into a golden nugget of expression, which is celebration. That's been our word from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Life just threw us a bone. It said, you guys have been doing so well. Let's now elevate this beautiful thing over here to the level of the life you're building.
Yeah.
We're not inviting something distant. We are celebrating something obvious, something apparent, something inherent.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what this day is doing. And it's inviting. It's actually inviting us to celebrate the best in ourselves. That's what's really happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's already doing that.
Yeah.
You know, the Princess of Wands is running through that field of wildflowers, and every one of those flowers is some beautiful part of you. And it's celebrating that and releasing itself to that and permitting the expression of that. That's what this day is about. So we humbly hope that you benefited from the example we were able to share, even though it felt a little vulnerable to do it. We're not here trying to appear perfect. We realize that perfection is built in. And so because of that understanding, we find it appropriate to simply show the truth of what we're moving through at any given time so that maybe others can benefit from it too. Mm-hmm. We also I sincerely hope that you are able to accept the explicit apology that I'm offering about any potential confusion that my lack of clarity up until this morning produced. These day signatures, these angels, this tarot, none of this has anything, any part to play in the direction of divination or horoscopes.
Right.
We're not telling you when the ideal times to do anything are. Nothing like this. Our intention, more so now than ever, is simply to show up and to celebrate the very best in you, because we're learning how to see it. You're learning how to see it. And at the end of the day, there is nothing present in your experience that is not cause for celebration.
Yes. Well said.
I used your words. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else you would like to add, or do you think we've covered?
Oh, no, this is great.
This was great.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is my new favorite conversation.
Me too.
We hope you enjoyed it. We're very excited to see you again tomorrow. More Vortex days ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But for today, we celebrate, and we continue that celebration. We hope you'll come and join us in your way. Yeah?
Cheers.
Cheers. Love that. Goodbye for now.
Bye.